Is your mic on?
Yes. Chairman Cummings, Ranking Member Jordan, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here today. I have asked this committee to ensure that my family be protected from presidential threats and that the committee be sensitive to the questions pertaining to ongoing investigations. I thank you for your help and for your understanding. I am here under oath to correct the record, to answer the committee's questions truthfully, and to offer the American people what I know about President Trump. I recognize that some of you may doubt and attack me on my credibility. It is for this reason that I have incorporated into this opening statement documents that are irrefutable and demonstrate that the information you will hear is accurate and truthful. Never in a million years did I imagine, when I accepted a job in 2007 to work for Donald Trump, that he would one day run for the presidency, to launch a campaign on a platform of hate and intolerance, and actively win. I regret the day I said yes to Mr. Trump. I regret all the help and support I gave him along the way. I am ashamed of my own failings and publicly accepted responsibility for them by pleading guilty in the Southern District of New York. I am ashamed of my weakness and my misplaced loyalty, of the things I did for Mr. Trump in an effort to protect and promote him. I am ashamed that I chose to take part in concealing Mr. Trump's illicit acts rather than listening to my own conscience. I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
Hello and welcome once again to the Political Circus Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ursery, and what you heard at the beginning of this was testimony from Michael Cohen, the former attorney for President Donald Trump, who is soon going to prison for lying to Congress. He testified before Congress this week. Also happening this week, President Trump was in Hanoi, Vietnam, to try to negotiate a peace deal with Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea, in an effort to bring peace to the Korean Peninsula and denuclearize North Korea. Of course, the president walked away without a deal. No deal was reached, and we're really no closer to peace in Korea than we were before that meeting. But, you would think that Trump meeting with the the North Korean dictator once again, you would think that that would be the biggest news of the week, but no. Instead, while that was going on, the news cycle was dominated with Michael Cohen's testimony before Congress. The hearing was an open session, and it was televised by basically every news network. Very little attention given to the summit in Hanoi. Instead, everybody was focused on this. At the end of last week's episode, I told you all that I would be back this week with the next Circus act. And folks, this testimony and everything involved with it, this was a circus. And it was a circus from the very beginning. The day had started with a tweet from President Trump where he was talking about Cohen, and he tweets, "Michael Cohen was one of my many lawyers who represented me, unfortunately. He had other clients also. He was just disbarred by the state Supreme Court for lying and fraud. He did bad things unrelated to Trump. He is lying in order to reduce his prison time using Crooked's lawyer." He's talking about Lanny Davis, who is an attorney for Hillary Clinton. Lanny Davis was present with Cohen when he gave his testimony this past Wednesday. And the president has said a lot of things about Cohen since the time that Cohen supposedly flipped on Trump and began. Well, I guess first he spoke with Robert Mueller, and then he testified to Congress. He's testified with Congress in a couple of closed sessions as well. And the president has been speaking out against Cohen during that entire time, calling him dishonest, calling him crooked, calling him a rat, calling him all these different names. Mr. President, if he is all these things that you say he is, why did you hire him? And why did you keep him on for a decade? Surely in those 10 years, you would have found this out, all these things that you're saying about him now, and you would not have kept him on board anymore, would you, if you knew these things? But that was how the day started. And then we get to the actual testimony itself. And from the very beginning, we had fighting back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. Who would have thought that we would have had that? Tell me, who would have thought that we would have had fighting between Republicans and Democrats in Congress? Who would have thought? Representative Elijah Cummings, who is the chair of the House Oversight Committee, officially opened the session, and then Representative Mark Meadows, who is one of the members of the committee, quickly interjected.
To hear the testimony of Michael Cohen, former attorney to President Donald Trump.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order.
You'll state your point of order.
Rule 9F of the committee rules say that any testimony from your witness needs to be here 24 hours in advance. The committee, the chairman knows well that at 10:08 we received the written testimony, and then we received evidence this morning at 7:54. Now, if this was just an oversight, Mr. Chairman, I could look beyond it. But it was an intentional effort by this witness and his advisors to once again show his disdain for this body. And with that, I move that we postpone this hearing.
So from the start, Mark Meadows is pointing out that procedures for this were not followed correctly, and therefore he wanted to move to postpone the hearing and then go back and do everything the right way. Of course, that didn't happen because the testimony went on anyway. And Elijah Cummings had responded to him saying that he received the testimony late the night before. According to Meadows, the procedures say that the testimony must be in a full 24 hours before the session begins, late the night before, and then this thing starting around 9 a.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday. That's not 24 hours. But it went on anyway. And it actually reached a point where they had to do a roll call vote of whether to delay the start of the hearing or continue on as planned, which took up extra 10 minutes. This entire thing went on for 7.5 hours. The actual testimony itself, a little over 7. But with all these antics at the very beginning, it extended almost 8 hours. And then Representative Jim Jordan, the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee and a Republican, he delivered his opening remarks after Representative Cummings delivered his, and his were quite interesting.
Mr. Chairman, here we go. Here we go. Your first big hearing, your first announced witness, Michael Cohen. I want everyone in this room to think about this. The first announced witness for the 116th Congress is a guy who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress. Mr. Chairman, your chairmanship will always be identified with this hearing. And we all need to understand what this is. This is the Michael Cohen hearing presented by Lanny Davis. That's right. Lanny Davis choreographed the whole darn thing. The Clintons' best friend, loyalist, operative, Lanny Davis put this all together. You know how we know? He told our staff. He told the committee staff. He said the hearing was his idea. He selected this committee. He had to talk Michael Cohen into coming. And most importantly, he had to persuade the chairman to actually have it.
So it appears we have a conspiracy on our hands with this. The conspiracy, a Clinton conspiracy. Well, actually, Lanny Davis, who is a friend and attorney for the Clintons, as a Representative Jordan said, a Clinton loyalist. So this is where we are, and we haven't even gotten into the actual testimony yet. And all of these things, rule breaking, conspiracy, all these things being thrown around. You know, they should just turn the halls of Congress into an actual circus. Make it an actual circus, have a ringmaster there to announce everything and direct everything, and every member of Congress just have them all dress up like clowns and then they can all just sit and throw stuff at each other for a couple of hours because that's way more entertaining than what we're actually seeing now. We're seeing bickering back and forth, and we're seeing so much just division. And yes, Cohen did lie to Congress before, and he's going to prison for it. I'm guessing at the end of April. They said in 2 months. So around the end of April, he's going to prison. And because he lied to Congress already, you would think that he would not be a great witness. You would think that his credibility would be in question. Look, the Democrats are trying to find a way to impeach Donald Trump. And so this is what they're doing. Michael Cohen is just one of those witnesses that they brought in to build a case to file articles of impeachment against the president. It's not about the truth. They're not doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's just because they want to impeach the president, and this is one of the measures that they're resorting to. The Republicans were trying to block this testimony because, once again, it's not about credibility. It's not about, well, we probably can't take him at his word, so he may not be a very effective witness. No, they're just trying to block the Democrats from filing articles of impeachment. So once again, Donald Trump is at the very center of the feuding in Congress between the two parties. The Republicans accuse the Democrats of setting their sights on the president, and the Democrats accuse the Republicans of trying to protect him. But there is one interesting observation that I've made with all of this, as far as bringing in Michael Cohen to testify. Look, if Donald Trump is as bad of a person as you say he is, and if Michael Cohen was his personal attorney, his fixer, and just the person who protected him and represented him, if he's capable of doing that, then he must be just as bad as you say Donald Trump is. But not only that, but if you could not think of Michael Cohen as credible and trustworthy before, why would you think he is credible and trustworthy now? Well, the reason for that is actually pretty easy to see. It's because that the left is latching on to anyone they think could bring down the president and get him out of office. You got to remember, the left, they held Stormy Daniels as a hero. They even held Michael Avenatti as a hero. They tried to use Christine Blasey Ford to block Brett Kavanaugh from being on the Supreme Court. Nathan Phillips, the man who lied about his military service, used him in retaliation against Trump supporters, who happened to be a bunch of high school kids, and we remember everything that happened with that. That was a total crap show. So this is the reason why they're using Michael Cohen now. As damaged as he is, they still see him as a useful tool in trying to impeach the president and get him out of office. And Representative Cummings kind of hinted to that because he had introduced an amendment for this session where before they were not allowed to ask questions about Russia, he introduced the amendment and they were allowed to ask questions about Russia because the special counsel investigation, Robert Mueller, doing the investigation into Russian collusion between the president and Russia, that's still going on, and Michael Cohen, who has spoken with Mueller, they might think that he has some information about Trump's dealings with Russia, so that's on the table now. And like I said, they're just trying to find a way to impeach the president and get him removed. So Cohen delivers his testimony, and he delivered some evidence to back up his testimony. Like, for example, the whole thing with Stormy Daniels, where he had produced one check with Trump's signature on it. It was in the amount of $35,000. It was one of several payments to reimburse Cohen when he paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 to keep her quiet about the affair between her and Trump. He also produced what he called was an article with Donald Trump's handwriting on it, where Trump had arranged for a bidder to go to an auction and bid on a portrait of him and pay so much money for it, and that portrait is now hanging in one of his country clubs. And the reason for it is because he wanted his own portrait of himself to look really expensive and make him look really important. Look, if that really actually happened, that's really shallow. It's also incredibly dumb. And the whole thing about that is that Cohen alleges that Trump took money from his nonprofit foundation and used that to pay the bidder. And that's pretty bad. But more importantly, that's just really, really shallow. Cohen also talked about letters that he wrote to Trump's high school and the colleges that he attended not to release his grades or his SAT scores. Trump, did you get bad grades in school? No one cares. Come on. If you got bad grades, you got bad grades. I don't care. Grades aren't really a reflection of intelligence anyway. And then Cohen also talked about negotiations between Trump and Russia about building a Trump Tower in Moscow. He said that those negotiations had stopped in January of 2016, and he said that was false. The negotiations went on for months later. And one of the things leading up to this testimony is that people were wondering if Trump had told Cohen told him directly to lie to Congress about this. And he said, well, no, he didn't tell me directly, but he did tell me in his own way. What does that mean? He also alleges that President Trump had lied during the campaign about how there was no business with Russia happening during the campaign. And Cohen had said that the reason for that is because Trump never expected to win the presidency. And yeah, that very well might be true. He ran a pretty good campaign, and Hillary ran a really lousy campaign. And honestly, she conducted her campaign like she had it won as soon as she was nominated. But, he's saying that Trump never expected to win. So if he was going to lose, he was going to go on with his business, erect a Trump Tower in Moscow, and live out the rest of his life. And then he also testified about WikiLeaks, about how he said that he was sitting in an office with Trump and Roger Stone was on the phone. Trump had the phone on speaker. And he said that Stone had told Trump about how WikiLeaks was going to do this email dump because they had intercepted all these emails from Hillary Clinton and John Podesta. But during that line of questioning, there's this one thing that Thomas Massie did, and I thought that this was great. And I just love the way that he did this. So he's asking them, he asked him, well, when did this take place? And Cohen has said it took place in July of 2016. He said, I think it was July 18th or 19th. And then Massie holds up this piece of paper and he says, everyone else knew about it in June. And yeah, that's true, because WikiLeaks announced to the entire world, Julian Assange talked about it on TV in the UK, saying that they were going to release all these Hillary Clinton emails. And then part of his testimony was that Trump's response to Stone telling him that, he said that would be great. And I really don't know what the big deal is behind that, because you have this independent group who's doing opposition research on his opponent. Of course he's going to say that. Of course he's going to say that would be great. Trump didn't direct WikiLeaks to do that. No, they did that on their own accord. I think right now the story is that they got it from Russia, but still that wasn't at Trump's direction. WikiLeaks did that on their own. So of course he's going to say that would be great. That's free opposition research for him. But there are some things that could pose problems for Trump after this testimony and stuff that we know. One of them, of course, is the hush money to Stormy Daniels, where Cohen said that he had procured a home equity loan to pay her, and then Trump had paid him back from his personal account while he was president. The check that he showed was dated August 1st, 2017, in the amount of $35,000. And Cohen is also alleging that Trump had directed Cohen to lie about Trump's knowledge of the payment. And of course, the defense to this is going to be that those payments were actually because Cohen was Trump's personal attorney and the payments were for services rendered, and saying that he was on a retainer. Although Cummings said during the session that there was no retainer agreement between Trump and Cohen, but we'll see how this one plays out. And this went on for over 7 hours. A lot of questions asked about things like inflating assets, being a fixer, and so many other things. And then in the middle of it, there was another circus act between Mark Meadows and Rashida Tlaib. Now, one of the things that Cohen did was he accused Trump of being a racist, saying that he had made a lot of bigoted remarks about African Americans in the United States and about countries that are predominantly black. Well, Meadows sought to refute that claim by bringing in a woman named Lynn Patton, who originally worked for the Trump organization and then had a job within the Trump administration. Well, Tlaib took offense to that, and then this played out.
Just to make a note, Mr. Chairman, just because someone has a person of color, a black person working for them, does not mean they aren't racist. And it is insensitive that some would even say it's the fact that someone would actually use a prop, a black woman, in this chamber, in this committee, is alone racist in itself. Donald Trump is setting
Mr.
a precedent.
Chairman, I ask that her words
Donald
be
Trump
taken
is setting
down.
a precedent. I reclaim my time.
Mr.
Donald
Chairman,
Trump is setting a precedent.
Mr.
That
Chairman,
the highest office can be attained.
Mr. Chairman, the rules
legal
are clear.
activity. Cover up and hold on to business assets to break campaign finance laws and constitutional clauses. What we have here, Mr. Chairman, is criminal conduct and the pursuit of the highest public office by Mr. Cohen and Individual One. I hope that the gravity of this situation hits everyone in this body and in Congress and across this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the rest of my time.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that her words, when she's referring to an individual member of this body, be taken down and stricken from the record. I'm sure she didn't intend to do this, but if anyone knows my record as it relates, it should be you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I would like to.
Hold on.
I want the words read back.
No.
We want to know exactly what she said about a colleague.
Excuse me. Would you like to rephrase that statement, Ms. Tlaib?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can actually read it from here. Just to make a note, Mr. Chairman, that just because someone has a person of color, a black person working for them, does not mean they are racist. And it is insensitive that someone would even say racist, say it is racist in itself, and to use a black woman as a prop to prove it otherwise. And I can submit this for the record. If a colleague is thinking that that's what I'm saying, I'm just saying that's what I believe to have happened. And if, as a person of color in this committee, that's how I felt at that moment, and I wanted to express that. But I am not calling the gentleman, Mr. Meadows, a racist for doing so. I'm saying that in itself, it is a racist act.
Well, I hope not, Mr. Chairman, because I need to be clear on this particular. Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Meadows, wait a minute.
I've defended you about
Mr. Meadows,
with false accusations.
Mr. Meadows, I'm the chair.
Yes, sir, you are.
Thank you.
Right.
I will clear this up. Now, Ms. Tlaib, I want to make sure I understand. You were not intending to call Mr. Meadows a racist, is that right?
No, Mr. Chairman, I do not call Mr. Meadows a racist. I am trying, as a person of color, Mr. Chairman, just to express myself and how I felt at that moment. And so, just for the record, that's what was my intention.
All right. Mr. Meadows.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing more personal to me than my relationship. My nieces and nephews are people of color. Not many people know that. You know that, Mr. Chairman. And to indicate that I asked someone who is a personal friend of the Trump family, who has worked for him, who knows this particular individual, that she's coming in to be a prop, it's racist to suggest that I ask her to come in here for that reason.
So Meadows and Tlaib going back and forth, just calling each other racist. You're a racist. No, you're a racist for calling me a racist. Or you're a racist for this. You're a racist for thinking I did something racist. Right in the middle of this testimony. And Cohen, of course, is not done. He is going to testify on Capitol Hill again on March 6th. Another round of questions, and probably be exactly like what this was. Well, the president had put out a round of tweets about Cohen's testimony on Friday morning, and he's talking about this a manuscript for a book that Cohen wrote, which he sent to publishers a short time ago. And he's saying that, well, I'll just read you the tweets. He says, wow, just revealed that Michael Cohen wrote a love letter to Trump manuscript for a new book that he was pushing, written and submitted long after Charlottesville and Helsinki, his phony reasons for going rogue. Book is exact opposite of his fake testimony, which now is a lie. Congress must demand the transcript of Michael Cohen's new book, given to publishers a short time ago. Your heads will spin when you see the lies, misrepresentations, and contradictions against his Thursday testimony. Like a different person, he is totally discredited. Oh, I see. Now that the 2-year Russian collusion case has fallen apart, there was no collusion except by crooked Hillary and the Democrats. They say, gee, I have an idea. Let's look at Trump's finances and every deal he has ever done. Let's follow discredited Michael Cohen and the fraudulent and dishonest statements he made on Wednesday. No way. It's time to stop this corrupt and illegally brought witch hunt. Time to start looking at the other side where real crimes were committed. Republicans have been abused long enough. Must end now. So he's reiterating the whole thing about how there was no Russian collusion, and he's also reiterating about how this is just a witch hunt by the Democrats. I do wonder what Trump's next move is going to be. I'm sure you remember after the midterm elections when the Democrats had won back the House and there began to be talk about how since they had control of the House, they were going to investigate and look for ways to draw up articles of impeachment. And then Trump had fired at them by saying that if you open an investigation on me, I will open investigations on all of you. So this could get ugly later on. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. While that was going on, Trump was in Vietnam he was meeting with Kim Jong-un, trying to strike a deal to denuclearize North Korea and bring peace once and for all to the Korean Peninsula. Unfortunately, no deal was done. And Trump was quoting as saying, sometimes you just have to walk away. And apparently what happened was North Korea wanted the U.S. to lift all sanctions, but North Korea did not want to dismantle their entire nuclear arsenal. And Trump did the right thing here. And it's been noted in many publications that no deal is better than a bad deal. And you even have Democrats who are praising Trump for coming back with no deal instead of a bad deal. So, yeah, when that happens, Trump did the right thing. North Korea, Kim Jong-un has been thought in the past to be very unstable and kind of psychotic. North Korea has been conducting test missile launches. So, yeah, we're going to lift all sanctions on North Korea and let them keep their nuclear weapons. The world does not want the U.S. to do that, and the U.S. definitely isn't doing that. But Trump is in some hot water with the U.S. public, and especially with the family of Otto Warmbier. He was the young man who was arrested in North Korea, was in prison there, tortured, and was brought back to the U.S. while in a coma and eventually died. A reporter had asked Trump about if he thought that Kim Jong-un had knowledge of Warmbier's treatment, and Trump said that he doesn't believe that Kim Jong-un had knowledge, and that Kim Jong-un told him that he did not have knowledge and that he would take him at his word. That is very similar to his response about the Saudi prince saying he had no knowledge of what happened to Jamal Khashoggi. He said that the prince told him that he had no knowledge and he was going to take the Saudi prince at his word. And he's doing the same here with Kim Jong-un. Well, Trump got a very negative bipartisan response, but the family of Otto Warmbier put out a statement about this, and they're very upset. In their statement, they said, "We have been respectful during this summit process. Now we must speak out. Kim and his evil regime are responsible for the death of our son Otto. Kim and his evil regime are responsible for unimaginable cruelty and inhumanity. No excuses or lavish praise can change that." Yes, they are highly upset. Well, Trump tried to walk back those comments on Twitter Friday morning, where he tweeted out, "I never like being misinterpreted." His claim was that his comments were misinterpreted, but I don't know how you misinterpret that. He said, but especially when it comes to Otto Warmbier and his great family. Remember, I got Otto out along with 3 others. The previous administration did nothing, and he was taken on their watch. So he's making this thing political by saying that, well, you know, when Obama was president, he was arrested, and Obama didn't do anything about it. Okay, but that doesn't change the fact about what happened. So, come on. And then he says, of course I hold North Korea responsible for Otto's mistreatment and death. Well, why didn't you say that when you were speaking to the entire world about this? And he said, most important, Otto Warmbier will not have died in vain. Otto and his family have become a tremendous symbol of strong passion and strength, which will last for many years into the future. I love Otto and think of him often. No, you don't. That's a very generic response and very disingenuous there at the very end. It would have been better if he had just issued an apology about what he said, because there's no way you can walk that back. In response to no deal being made, North Korea had said that Trump and the U.S. walked away from the best chance of a deal being made. So, don't know what's going to happen next with that. But the thing that everyone's going to be looking forward to next week is the second round of testimony from Michael Cohen. I can only imagine how that one is going to go. But I will be right back here again next week with recap and commentary of the latest Circus act coming out of Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for listening to the Political Circus Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ursery. The Political Circus Weekly Podcast is a part of the Think Liberty Network. You can find it in most podcatchers. If there's a podcatcher that we are not on and one that you use that you would like to see us on, let us know. Also, I'd ask that you please rate, comment, and subscribe. Let me know how this podcast is going. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. If there's something I'm not doing that you would like to see, or something I'm doing that you don't like, that you don't want me to see, just let me know. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all next week.